students, I'm standing here in the classroom in front of our math norms, and we have 7 different norms, and there's a slideshow that I've made for you that has each of these norms, and what I want you to do is kind of think about each norm, see if you can relate to it all, and you're going to add a little sticky note on a couple of those norms to say what you think the norm means, what it means to you, maybe an example of how it relates to your life or an experience that you've had. So I'm going to go through each of these 7 norms and talk about them briefly, but then I want you to be thinking about them and reflecting on what they mean to you as well. So the first one is that questions are really important. So obviously in this math class, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions that I want you to answer, but I also want you to be asking those questions as well. So I want you to be thinking about how the math relates to other things that you've learned, whether it makes sense in the context of what you already know about that topic, and I want you to be asking some really good questions as well. So questions are really important in math class. The second norm is that mistakes are valuable. So I'm sure you've all had the experience of making a mistake in math class. It would be really weird to be at this point in your math career in 6th grade and never have made a mistake. I make mistakes daily, and I think that mistakes are important for helping you learn and grow. If you got everything right the first time, it might not stick with you, right? You might not remember how to apply that topic the next time, but sometimes when you make a mistake, that's really valuable in helping your brain process how a math topic works. The next norm is that everyone can learn math to the highest level. So this is an advanced math class. All of you have probably had some success in math throughout the years that you've taken it, and I'm sure you will continue to have that success. But there are definitely times where you will hit some points where you struggle. You might not learn a topic as quickly as somebody else in the class, right? That doesn't mean you can't learn it. Every single person is capable of learning the math topics. We find as topics get more and more complex, for some people it might take longer to get there. Some people might fly through a topic and others might take a little bit more time. There might be some types of topics like, let's say, geometry that you can internalize really quickly and move on with, and other topics that take you a little bit longer to master. But everybody can learn math to the highest level. It's just a matter of learning it in the right way, learning it in ways that you can relate to, and persevering when you run into some trouble. The next norm is that math is about connections and communication. I talked a little bit about connections up here when I talked about questions, that when you're learning a new topic, I want you to connect it with what you've already learned. I want you to make connections between new math topics and previous math topics. I also want you to make connections between math topics and things that you've learned outside of math class. And the communication part, a lot about learning math is about communicating, talking to other people, trying to help solidify those connections by talking to others. The next norm is math class is about learning, not performing. Sometimes we think about math class as performing in the sense that you want to get the right answer, you want to show all of your work, right? All of those things are important, but it's the process of getting there that's the most important, right? If you can show all of your work perfectly, but you don't understand what you're doing, right? That's still not learning. That's performing, but it's not doing the learning piece. Now, a lot of times following the procedures that we talk about in class will help you learn, right? So I'm not saying that those procedures aren't important, but the learning and internalizing what you are understanding is the most important thing. The next norm is that depth is more important than speed. So we talked a little bit about the speed part up here, about not everybody learns at the same speed, right? Getting done quickly, being the first person to turn in your assignment, right, or the first person to turn in your test, does not necessarily mean that you understand it the best, right? I'm sure some of you have maybe had this experience before, that you're working on an assignment and you're taking your time, you're trying to do a good job on it, and then you notice that other people are already turning in their assignment, right? And it makes you a little bit nervous because you're like, whoa, why are they getting it so much more quickly, right? Working efficiently is important, right? We don't want to waste time in here. We want to be using our time effectively and efficiently, but I want you to focus on making sure you're going in depth, asking the important questions, right? Sometimes making the mistakes, really internalizing what you're learning and not just speeding through it, right? We want to be efficient with our time, but we don't want to be rushing. Okay, and then the last norm is that math is about creativity and making sense. So when we talked about connections, we talked a little bit about the idea of making sense, right? Making sense of the world, connecting things to new learnings, to previous learnings. That's a little bit about the making sense, but sometimes math is about creativity. You might solve a problem in a completely different way than somebody else, right? You might create a graph that nobody else in the class thought about, showing it in that way, right? That's one of the things that I love about math, is that sometimes somebody will solve a problem in a way I have never seen before. Sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong, right? There are right ways to go about getting an answer and wrong ways. You might use a completely new method, though, and get to a correct answer, which is super cool. It's really neat to be able to discover a new way of solving a problem that works. Okay, so you have these 7 norms. I want you to look on the slideshow that I made, and there's a way for you to add a little sticky note. So it's right under the little arrow. There's what looks like a little sticky note with some words on it. Go ahead and click on the sticky note, and I want you to add a few notes on at least 2 of the norms. So you can write about what you think it means to you, an example of how you would relate to that norm, or some other comment that you want to make on it that's positive and productive. All right, can't wait to see what you write. We'll see you later.